In the dense forest known as the Forest of Shadows, a sinister legend had long been born about a sorcerer who once ruled over an abandoned village. The local villagers whispered of his dark deeds and witchcraft rituals, and those who dared to approach his lair disappeared without a trace. Years of oblivion passed, and the place became an object of interest for adventurers and horror enthusiasts. I have always been drawn to mysteries and legends, and this story was no exception. Deciding to test the rumors, I packed a backpack, throwing in a flashlight, a notebook, an old camera, and some food. Little did I know that my life would change forever that day. With the first rays of sunlight, I left my house, full of curiosity and determination. Arriving at the Forest of Shadows left an indelible impression on me. The trees here were extraordinarily tall, their canopies intersecting overhead to create a grim twilight. The leaves whispered, as if discussing me. I felt that I had no friends here, only shadows watching my every move. I quickly reached the place where, according to the rumors, the abandoned village stood. Pushing through thick underbrush, I stumbled upon old houses, covered in moss and overgrown with bushes. Their walls were cracked, windows shattered, and doors creaked loudly, as if bearing the weight of time. I took pictures of a few buildings when I suddenly noticed strange marks carved into the wood at the entrance of one of the old houses. They resembled runes, but with each passing second, they became more enigmatic. My heart raced as I read the words on the tree, which seemed ancient. "A lonely soul that enters here shall not leave alive." I frowned, trying to understand what it meant, but a sense of dread compelled me to move further away from this eerie place. By the time the sun began to set on the horizon, I spotted a flickering light in the distance. Driven by curiosity, I headed toward it, assuming it might be some living creature or another group of explorers. As I approached the fire, I caught a whiff of something foul, the stench of decaying fruit or rotting wood. I felt as if I had stumbled into a trap, and I decided to be cautious. When I got closer, I saw several figures clad in black hoods around the bonfire. Their faces were hidden in shadows, but I sensed they were watching me. I froze, feeling the air thick with fear and malice. Bad laughter and sinister whispers echoed around me. These were the followers of the sorcerer, and sometimes they sacrificed people to breathe life into their dark rituals. I turned to leave. But as I turned around, I came face to face with him, the sorcerer. His tall figure loomed against the backdrop of the fire, as if an embodiment of evil itself. Lightning sparkled in his eyes, and his lips curled into a grotesque sneer. "You dare to enter my lands?" His voice was hoarse and ominous, like a wounded animal. "You know not what you do." I felt fear gripping me, but at that moment, I remembered the camera. I quickly aimed the lens at the sorcerer, hoping the shot would reveal his true face. In a flash of light, I saw him freeze for a moment, and then he lunged at me with wild fury. I turned and ran deeper into the forest, horrified to realize that night was soon to consume me. The branches seemed to grab at me, roots stubbornly clung to my shoes, and the faster I ran, the more tangled the path became. I snapped several branches, feeling the sorcerer closing in. His voice was filled with wrath and hatred. All my fears intertwined into one. I was not just a victim of the forest. I had become its target. When I stumbled onto a small clearing, where only old stones had recently stood, I saw a light breaking through the trees. It beckoned me, and I moved towards it. But once again, I was faced with the sorcerer, who seemed to appear from nowhere. His face resembled burning coal. It shimmered and tore apart, but I knew I couldn't give up. I recalled the book of spells I had bought at a flea market. I remembered how it spoke of creating a protective circle. The energy in the forest was overwhelming, but my determination not to leave this darkness behind compelled me to act. I gathered my last strengths and began to work. Jumping and calling upon the currents of my thoughts, I started drawing a circle in the earth with salt, scraps of paper, and whatever I could find. Using my knowledge of spells, I shouted, trying to overcome my fear. "Forces of darkness, retreat. I fear you not." My words echoed through the space. The cracking and rumbling in the forest shook the very atmosphere. I felt magical energy gathering around me, like light within the dark forest. At that moment, the sorcerer froze. His fury suddenly dissipated. His face twisted in horror as he realized I was creating a barrier. The sorcerer lunged toward me, but it was too late. Sparks of light erupted around me, and the darkness began to fade. I closed my eyes and focused on my intent. With the last word of the spell, the sorcerer screamed as if the forest itself responded to his agony. The shadow of his essence shattered into fragments, and I opened my eyes to sharply realize that the forest had become silent once more. I took a deep breath, but the tension would not release me. Leaving my circle behind, I hastily made my way out of the forest, though the sorcerer continued to echo in my mind. I didn't know what lay ahead, but I felt that dark forces would follow me, remembering all their victims. I had managed to escape, but we were forever bound. When I returned to civilization, one thought remained: the evil in the forest had not been defeated but merely paused. I began exploring other historical sites, collecting stories and dreaming of adventures, but always cautiously peering into the shadows. I knew that the Forest of Shadows had become a part of me, and perhaps one day I would have to confront the sorcerer again to complete what had begun on that fateful day. My camera remained with me, but it still held photographs of the sorcerer. His gaze reminded me that evil might not be so far away. These memories continually kept me on guard. I understood that, while exploring the dark corners of the world, I would always remember him, the sorcerer who stalked the shadows.